But yeah, we are really privileged. And as I went through all of the UUA literature on this subject, the association literature, I realized it's this one piece. Not only is our privilege, it is what makes the UUs unique. You know, when you think about our 7 principles, virtually every religious tradition has some variation on those principles. But not this one. Because virtually every religious tradition hands you the truth. Now, they may hand you stages of the truth. You know, there's the child version of the truth. A baby was born and put into a manger. Right? And then there is the more adult version of the truth. Well, that's a symbol for something else. Right? And then as you continue along, there will be another version of the truth, and then another version of the truth. But the religious traditions of empire culture, of the civilization we live in, hand us the truth. Now, this is not true in indigenous cultures. This is not the fact in indigenous cultures. The assumption in earth-centered cultures is that part of growing up is discovering deeper and deeper truths, higher and richer truths. So we are privileged in this culture to be encouraged to do something that others are not allowed. So this is a classic image from a Unitarian site. Liberal theology insists that truth is not already handed us done. We're stuck with it. This is how it is, right? It's not a one-act drama. Liberal, isn't that an interesting word? A swear word in some parts of this country. I have a friend who likes to quote a senator, a conservative senator from a decade or so ago, who referred to criminals, rapists, liberals, all in one category. But a liberal theology is a theology that is open and free and exploring possibilities. Now, theology is an interesting word in itself, the study of God. And one of the interesting things about Unitarian-Universalists is a number of us don't acknowledge the possibility of God, but we accept that theology is there anyway. So what is God? When Jesus...
That was God.
That was good. Love it. In various traditions around the world, God has many qualities. Okay? God is life, God is love, God is truth. And in the Christian tradition, when Pilate is trying to get Jesus to somehow not have to go through what he's going through, because Pilate recognizes this is a sham, he says to Jesus, tell me the truth, and Jesus comes back with, what is truth? He could just as easily have said, as everyone in this room can, I am truth. And that's what Walt Whitman in our reading was trying to get us to understand. You don't have to go out there to find truth. You go in here. Which has some interesting implications. Can you read that text?
No.
Yes.
No.
It's 18. Some of you can, some of you can't. Shall I read it?
Yes.
All right. This privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, believing that our single perspective trumps all others. Interesting word. But rather to be humble to be open to the great mysteries of truth and meaning that life offers. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community, conflict, nature, and relationships. That's part of the UUA website. I know a number of UUs who have a bumper sticker on the back that says, "Nature is my church." And this is why. Because for them, they feel the truth and the meaning when they allow themselves to fully experience this incredible thing we call life in the natural world. There is an interesting experience, an interesting thing that's happening, because this is a journey, this is a search, this is not a destination. And so part of why UU congregations exist is to support each other in that search, to support each other in the realization that we're going to continue to be discovering, and that every time we open our hearts and our minds to actually listen to each other, we're going to discover something that will take our own search, our own journey, one more step. Now, Thomas Jefferson gave us some caveats here. This is a letter to his nephew. I'm a little hesitant to say that because that famous Goethe quote about how the universe lines itself to give you what you need when you make yourself fully committed is also supposed to be a letter to his nephew. You know, maybe that's the standard thing you do when you don't know whether they really said it or how. But in any case, Thomas Jefferson, divest yourself of all bias. Shake off all the fears and servile prejudices, all our prejudgments, under which weak minds are servilely crouched. Fix reason firmly in her seat and call to her tribunal every fact, every opinion. Question with boldness even the existence of a God, because if there be one, he must more approve of the homage of reason than that of blindfold fear. Amen. Yeah, some people call him a Unitarian. So as we are on this journey, we're going to experience a lot of things. And we're going to go outward, and we're going to go inward, and we're going to go onward, and we're going to feel sometimes as if we're lifted to a higher level of being. And we're going to sometimes experience that which have been issues and problems somehow dissolve because we found a richer understanding and a deeper meaning. Yeah? This was put together for a class in one of the churches on the East Coast. You know, reminding us we're going to bring every aspect of our being. We're going to bring our mind, our intelligence, our heart, our imagination, and our spirit into this journey. And it's going to look like this. All right? And the nice thing about the labyrinth, and you all who participated when Linda and Larry put that thing together, wow, that was beautiful. You get close to the center, you think you're there, and then you're taken out there. You know? And then you come back in close to the center, and that feels, no, you're going out there again. A labyrinth has a heart. It has a light at the center. And sometimes it feels like you're being drawn away from that heart, away from that light. And that is this journey too. We have experiences, and we hear stories, and we encounter people who seem to pull us away from that truth and pull us away from that meaning. And what they're doing is facilitating the journey. That's all they're doing. They're moving us one more step I was delighted to find that our current president, I don't think we've shifted yet, of the UUA, Peter Morales, wrote an article for an offbeat, funny little magazine called Atlantis Rising. It's one that one of my authors in my little publishing company refers to a lot. And it's alternative science, alternative history, alternative fun things. Peter Morales wrote an article on science and spirituality for this wonderful article, this little magazine. So he is telling them that we recognize science and religion share a common wellspring. They both arise from the human need to cope with life, to make life comprehensible, controllable, and meaningful. And I love this quote because in some ways it describes my path. My first conscious step on my journey for truth and meaning was when I walked out of my Unitarian Sunday school. Because I could learn about art and science anywhere. I wanted that meaning. And they weren't giving me. Fortunately, the UU childhood education program has changed. And meaning is much more woven into it. But you remember, those of you who were here for my talk about grandmother and Gandhi, that meaning piece had been woven into my life, the possibilities that were available to us, because grandmother had seen the blind be made to see, the lame be made to walk. She had seen so much in India, and I wasn't getting that. And I wanted to know why, how could that be? These things and greater shall you do. Grandmother was the third generation of academics. She became dean of a college, and then my parents and aunts and uncles were academics, and so I got to be an academic. But the main reason I did that, was because I thought that was how I would find this truth, this meaning. So I went to school for 32 years, and I did find truth that I didn't find. It wasn't until the body broke down and I had to find a way beyond the sciences, outside of the sciences, that the meaning began to become evident to me. And that's his point as we go forward. This image, by the way, is related to the fact that scientists have discovered a new state of light, a new form that light takes. A brand new truth, a brand new fact, a brand new appearance in matter and energy. Something that never existed before in our awareness. Scientific truth is constantly changing. Which direction is he facing? What people know to be true changes as new information comes. And so my search in the area of truth is always at the leading edge, at that cutting edge of the sciences. But the meaning is always from the inner space. Yeah? If the truth is constantly changing, then we have to give up some old beliefs. We have to let go of our predispositions, or as Thomas Jefferson said, our prejudices, our prejudgments about things, about people, about ourselves, about the nature of the universe. I met a man yesterday, Diane's guest this week. His name is Doug. He's here from South Africa for a few days. He goes to the desert in South Africa every week with his great big telescope to be absorbed by, truly, to be absorbed by the universe. So he's there in that space where he's seeing all that incredible vastness and beauty, all the incredible order in what appears to be randomness. And he finds that he has to let go of yet one more limiting belief. And I was reminded of you in the Hubble images. Linda has shared with me that she sees these images that NASA publishes from the Hubble telescope, right? And they do that. They call you into them. And you have to leave behind some of your limited notions that you brought to the moment. What beliefs, what thoughts, what assumptions, what absolutely certain facts have we had to let go of along the journey? There was a book by Thomas Kuhn. It was his PhD dissertation at the University of Chicago back in the 60s called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And basically it comes down to the new science is accepted when all the old scientists have either died or let go of the old beliefs. And not until then. And that's going on in each and every one of us all the time. Was it easy to let go of that old belief? Was it something that was painful? And what led you to it? What led you to realize that that assumption, that certainty was no longer relevant to your life? Yeah. When I was a teenager, one of the places that I went to find meaning in truth was a favorite book to many of us. Every baby boomer, I think, has read this book, The Prophet. Yeah, The Prophet. And as I was putting this talk together, I had an odd realization. 50 years ago today, I delivered my first sermon.
Oh, cool.
On the prophet, on giving. The topic was giving. And so it's kind of neat that I'm drawing on the prophet again. I was in high school and it was Youth Sunday, and they said, totally beyond my comprehension, they asked me to deliver a sermon. All right. But can we understand this? That the truth we are seeking is not something we can say, right? Another book most of us read in our teen years, Siddhartha. There's a new translation. It's very, very good. And those of you who don't know, it was written in German. Govinda, remember Govinda was Siddhartha's companion when they started out. But Govinda stayed with the Buddha, Gautama. And Siddhartha said, that's someone else's truth. I can't accept that. I have to find my own. The search for truth and meaning. So Siddhartha, on his journey, ends up, or at the end of the book, we find that he has taken over the operation of a ferry across the river. Because the man who was operating that ferry was the embodiment of everything that he had wanted. And so as that man moved on, Siddhartha took it over. So Govinda has just gone on a journey from the Buddha's monks. And he comes to the ferry and he starts talking to the ferryman. And Siddhartha reveals himself. And he says, will you say a word to me, honored one, to Siddhartha? And Siddhartha says, what could I say to you, venerable one? Perhaps that you are seeking too hard? That you seek so hard that you do not find? What do you mean, said Govinda. When someone seeks, said Siddhartha, then it easily happens that his eyes see only the thing that he seeks, and he is able to find nothing, to take in nothing, because he always thinks only about the thing he is seeking. Because he has one goal, because he is obsessed with his goal. Seeking means having a goal. But finding means being free, being open, having no goal. Govinda says, I don't get it. I do not fully understand. What do you mean? And then later on, finally, Siddhartha says, you know, dear friend, as a young man back then, when we lived with the penitents in the forest, I already came to distrust the teachings and the teachers, and I turned my back on them. Now I have changed in that regard. Nevertheless, nor have I changed in that regard. Nor have I changed in that regard. Nevertheless, I have had many teachers since then. And he goes down, and he says, and I was thankful to each of them, very thankful. But most of all have I learned from this river and from my forerunner, the ferryman. He was no thinker, but he knew what was essential as well as Gautama. And Siddhartha, Govinda says, tell me what your thoughts are. And Siddhartha says, I have had thoughts, yes, and insights now and then, sometimes for an hour or for a day. I have felt knowledge in me the way we lift in our hearts, the way we feel life. There were a number of thoughts, but it would be hard for me to communicate them to you. Wisdom cannot be communicated. Wisdom that a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. And Govinda responds with, are you joking? We hunger for meaning. Science can't give us that meaning, was one of the things that Peter Morales said in that article. In order to find meaning, we have to be willing to believe things that we haven't been willing to believe. We have to be willing to accept possibilities we haven't been willing to accept, that our prejudgments would not allow. You might look in your heart and say, have I really wanted to believe this? For me, it was the goddess, the mother. I could not accept the Catholic's version of the mother, that there was this woman and the Holy Spirit had come in and impregnated her, and that now she was the goddess. That didn't work for me for many, many years. And then I realized I really longed for a divine, nurturing presence. And I understood that in the New Testament, that was what Abba meant for the man we call Jesus. A divine, nurturing presence. Well, I grew up without a father, and my grandfather disowned all his kids. And my other grandfather, I didn't even know was alive because he was in a VA hospital. So father was not a big concept in my life as a child. So I didn't want a father, although I did relate to the divine in that way as much as I could. But I realized as an adult who had not had a nurturing mother that I really wanted a nurturing mother. And I allowed, at a stage in my life, the belief that the divine could show up as a nurturing mother. Huge shift in my relationship with myself and with the world. I don't have to have that anymore, although sometimes in my weaker moments I would have to crawl back into real life. But it was a necessary stage in my journey to find truth and meaning, was to allow a belief that I had not, my intellect and my prejudgments had not allowed. We all might want to look at that. Give ourselves the opportunity to actually believe something that our heart would like to experience. Realizing we may move on from that, and that's just fine. In fact, it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. It's inevitable that we will move on from that. And that's okay. So we have the privilege to be free in our search for truth and for meaning. We can go anywhere. We are totally limitless in that search. That's something that the UUs offer that nobody else does. Totally free, totally limitless. But someone was very smart when they put together these principles, because they added that word responsible. I don't get to lay my search on you. I don't get to require that you go where I'm going. And neither do you get to do that. None of us would. That would be irresponsible. I do get to pay attention to where the sources are. What was the experience? What led to this? That is responsible. To be aware and honor the sources for the truth. To recognize the experiences that led to a deeper meaning. A free and responsive search. We get to be scientists of the Spirit. We use the scientific method, we use our intellect, and then we allow ourselves to go into that deep, intuitive, imaginative space where the meaning is. What a privilege. What a blessing. What a gift. And that's the other thing. We all get to think in our own way. We all get to go our own journey. And we get to love and feel